If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with another album review for you guys, and we are kicking off pretty much the weekend of May 5th with probably the biggest release coming out this weekend, and that is Unearth with the Wretched, the Ruinous. So this is the 8th studio album from these Boston metalcore legends, and they're on Century Media Records after they spent a long time with Metal Blade and then kind of bouncing around now on Century Media. And it's been a while since I've checked out Unearth. I think the last album I listened to was Watchers of Rule, and I thought that was a pretty decent album. I didn't check out Extinctions when it came out in 2018, but here I am now, 5 years after Extinction, so this is the longest break between studio albums for Unearth. And, well, if you want a quick synopsis, this is some brilliant metalcore. I know metalcore tends to kind of be a dirty word now because of, well, mostly the modern metalcore bands of like Askin Alexandria and bands along those lines, but Unearth is more or less kind of like that middle band between like early metalcore of bands like Hatebreed and Earth Crisis and into like Killswitch Engage and As I Lay Dying era metalcore, which I still do like some of that stuff. But Unearth felt like an amalgamation of like what metalcore became in the early 2000s and what metalcore was in the 90s when it was first being created. So they kind of do like a nice mesh of both versions of metalcore, I would say. Like, and this album, I've heard some people say that this is almost like a comeback album back to the days of like the mid 2000s era, like through like Storm, and I forget the names of the two big albums that came out in the mid 2000s. I forget. I probably should have written them down before I did this, but I digress. So we kick things off with the title track, and like tone-wise, like they're tuning their guitars down lower, and it kind of gives off a little bit of like that Modern In Flames tone to it. But musically, it's so far beyond Modern In Flames. This feels like what Modern In Flames is trying to be, almost. You get some chuggy riffs, little tremolos, but with great usage of melody, wild drums. It was a pretty cool way to kind of kick things off. But then we get into more classic Unearth sounding stuff, with Cremation of the Living, blast beats immediately, and then you get into these more melodic death metal riffs, and there's a lot of touches of melodic death metal all throughout, particularly bands like At the Gates, Soilwork, maybe even a little Dark Tranquility and Hypocrisy even. But here, like these riffs in the melodeath department on top of like a thrash metal energy made me think immediately of like At the Gates and Soilwork right out of the gate. Big breakdown early. Now, I will say the breakdowns on this album are really kind of catchy and at the same time crunchy. Like, the way Unearth does their breakdowns definitely feels more akin to classic hardcore or like heavy hardcore of the 90s, but mix it with like a heavy metal production. And the breakdowns on this whole album are fucking killer, I would say. Like, and there are even times whenever you get like a little bass drop at times, like especially at the beginning of Broken Arrow, you get this like big bass drop into a killer hardcore groove. So the bass drops are used very sparingly on here, which is really nice. But yeah, with Cremation of the Living, yeah, big breakdown early, but you get these like cool big tension releases here and there on this track, which really kind of breaks up the dynamics of the song. And there's sometimes when the breakdowns that do pop up will have like more dissonant guitars, whether it's more evil sounding dissonance or melodic dissonance. Like here, you get like a more standard dissonant guitar line on top of a breakdown. And then into Eradicator, and it kind of starts off almost reminding me a little bit of Meshuggah, but on top of like a more hardcore groove. But then you get some, like, thrashy riffs again and the little blast beat section. But then it gets into, like, a galloping rhythm, like a classic heavy metal gallop. And a lot of songs on this album, like Eradicator, let's see, we also had Call of Existence, Into the Abyss, and Theaters of War. You get a lot of these, like, really cool, like, classic heavy metal gallops that feel like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. Like, there's a lot of, like, Iron Maiden influence on this album, particularly in the guitar work. Well, in the leads, I should say. Like, the lead work on this album is absolutely excellent. Like, great balance of shred, little bits of, like, hard rock flair, some tapping sections, like in, let me find it here. I know you're here. Call of Existence, like, the way it starts off, kind of reminded me a little bit of AC/DC Thunderstruck, but it's a little more epic and it's also a little harmonized. But as far as, like, the actual taps, Invictus has a really cool tapping section, and these taps are pretty much laced throughout this track. But yeah, like, you do get occasional taps in the melodies and the guitar leads, but yeah, guitar leads, very Iron Maiden inspired, and the gallops, like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, felt all throughout. But in Eradicator, the way the galloping rhythm goes along, you get, like, a more suspenseful melody on top, and then you get, like, a nice breakdown that has a mix of crunchy guitars, but with little atonal lines on the guitars. And I will say, in terms of, like, speed, the lead work on Eradicator was fucking flying. Then we get into Mother Betrayal, which has a lot of, like, cool little murkiness to it. Like, it starts off with, like, a nice clean melody. Then you get a little clean vocal passage, which I think is the only time you get any clean vocals on this album, is in this little passage at the beginning of Mother Betrayal. But it's on top of, like, a really dark melody, and that melody's felt into the more hardcore grooves. But you do get a lot of thrashy fury on this track, and another really cool gallop into that clean melody. And that's a cool thing with this album. Whenever you get, like, a cool melody that you really like, they'll sometimes go back to it to remind you, you like this melody? Well, here you go again, but with more on top of it. But yeah, Invictus brings in more, like, speed metal or hardcore D beats, which was really cool. And like I said, there's the big tapping section at the start. And again, more dissonant guitars show up. And then the breakdown at the very end is even slower than most breakdowns. Call of Existence, like I said, starts off similar to Thunderstruck, but more epic and more harmonized. And there's great dynamic shifts on this song. And then again, there are great dynamics all throughout, especially even vocally. Like, Trevor Phipps's vocals have a lot of great dynamic throughout. More dissonant melodies show up. Dawn of the Militant, I will gladly say that that's a straight-up thrash metal song. Like, feels like classic 80s thrash. Like, there's little hints of, like, I would say Exodus and maybe even Anthrax a little bit in the riff department. But I love how there's great drum flair on top with those dissonant guitars before it just punches you right in the penis with thrash metal fury. And of course, this song being all about Oppenheimer and being like, oh, probably shouldn't have done this. And there's, like, even them little emergency sounds that alternate with the breakdown at the end. But there's even a cool, like, dark shift in the middle of the song that leads into that. I'm going to try and pronounce this. Aniara, I think I got that, is an acoustic and clean guitar interlude that brings us into the song Into the Abyss, which is perhaps the most somber song of the album. Like, the melodies on here feel very somber, but you get, like, driving melodeath riffs and galloping rhythms again, more cool taps. This track definitely feels like In Flames and Dark Tranquility, like in the 90s in particular. Broken Arrow. Now, this song I feel was maybe the most hardcore song of the album, like straight up hardcore punk. Like, you get hardcore grooves, a little hardcore punk speed pickup, but you still get, like, metal tropes throughout. But this kind of felt more like a New York hardcore song, like early Cro-Mags and Agnostic Front in particular. But still, even the lead that shows up here and the melodies feel more almost hard rock inspired. And then in the final track, Theaters of War, which may have been my favorite song of the album, basically perfectly encapsulates everything this album did. Thrash, groove, mellow death, guitars, great melodic play, galloping rhythms, chunky riffs, and even a cool, beautiful melodic lead that shreds but has some cool harmonies. But the breakdown at the end may have been my favorite breakdown of the entire album, and it made me think of the song Latrodectus by Blood Red Throne. Very, very similar, but it's badass. But yeah, like I said, cool vocal dynamics throughout, excellent lead work. The riffs kind of vary from all over the place, from melodic death metal, thrash metal, classic metal, and hardcore. Drums have great flair, accents, speed, and groove. The breakdowns never got boring. They always were able to add something to the breakdown, either adding more crunch or more dynamics on top with the melodies or dissonance. Just changing things up a little more. Solid production with a solid mix too. Like, everything was pretty audible and not too clean. It had a bit of grit to it. And again, the influences all throughout, like Meshuggah, Pantera, Cro-Mags, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all throughout. And I will say this is probably the best metalcore album I've heard in a long time. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed this, and I know people are probably going to shit on me because I'm talking about metalcore. Hey, all subgenres have some good to it. This band certainly is one of the best to do metalcore and do it right. Perfect balance of hardcore and metal. Definitely more on the metal side, I would say, but still, great work by these Boston legends. Salute you. Trevor and Buzz, the only two original members left, and they fucking killed it. Kudos to you. But of course, this is just my opinion. What did you guys think of the Wretched, the Ruinous by Unearth? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time... Actually, before I go, quick little note for you guys. This weekend's reviews are going to be the last videos you're going to see for about a week, because I'm going to be away on vacation to Tennessee starting on Sunday. So the Undead review that I got coming out for Sunday, I will already be on the road to Tennessee when that gets posted. And then after that, you might get a surprise phone camera video from me, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to be away on vacation for a few days, and hopefully come back with some killer stuff for the collection back here. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.